3521 Ainslie is an existing triplex, no construction plan. The effort here is to legalize it, and I'm sure there'll be some questions about why we have a meeting about that. So,
Great, thank you. My name is Bill McLaughlin. I'm an attorney. I'm here representing the owners of this property, Peg Shaw and Anita Allen. If I could just ask everyone who's here for the Ainslie Street property, neighbors, community folks, if you can raise your hands, because we certainly don't have enough packets for everyone. We only have 20. But if you're here interested in Ainslie, I'd like you to get a packet. So if you just keep your hands up, Peg and Anita are going to hand these out to you. What you will see in our info packet, as Todd said, we have an existing triplex. Peg and Anita purchased this property in 2008, and they lived in it. I believe Peg lived on the first floor, Anita lived on the second floor, and they rented out the third floor. The gentleman who later became Anita's husband, that's a collateral issue. The issue here is the property was a triplex in 2008. The issue that always comes up is, when did it become a triplex, right? We've tried to do some research on that. There's no zoning history on the property whatsoever. What you will see in your packet here are photos of the 3 units, the interior of the 3 units. Each unit has its own kitchen, its own bathroom, and its own living space. The third floor being efficiency, so the kitchen is sort of on the side of the living space. Right after that, you see this page here, which is public information from property.phila.gov. That's available for any property in the city. You go on there, and it says description, semi-detached, converted to apartments, 3-story stone. So it says that on the city's website, but there's no zoning history. There's no variance that was ever granted to have this property be 3 units. So essentially that's why we're here. We are asking to legalize the existing use so that essentially Peg and Anita can get all their documents in order. The property is, the Department of L&I will not issue a rental license on this property. They issue something called a refusal because the zoning is for single family. So you need a variance to have multifamily. Now, it's refused for 2 reasons. One is the zoning code provides for single family, and 2 is what I think is a little quirky in the zoning code. It requires 1 parking spot for each unit. So they're also telling us we need to have 3 parking spaces for this house. I'm not entirely sure we could fit 3 parking spaces. Maybe we could fit 2 if we did a couple of things. One, we'd have to dig out the retaining wall that's in the front of the property. You can see in the photos, there's a nice retaining wall that runs down the side. And 2 is, there's an oak tree in the side yard. It's over 100 years old. You can't have both. If you dig that out and put in a parking pad, the oak tree cannot remain. And I have that on the word of Peg, who's a certified arborist. There's just no way you can have the oak tree remain. One of the last photos we have in there's sort of a distance shot from up the block where you can see the tree sort of towers up over. It's in really nice shape. It's a really nice tree. This being East Falls, as in many of the neighborhoods in the Northwest, we have a lot of trees. It's one of the things that makes the neighborhood special. It's one of the things that makes the place what it is. So we certainly would like to avoid cutting down the tree if at all possible. So that's the essence of the application. I don't want to keep you here all night, but I'm happy to take questions either from RCO folks, from the community, anyone who has a question. Yes?
I just have 2 questions.
Yeah.
One, is there any parking right now, or you just do street parking?
Street parking.
So any parking that you would have to create, not only would you be cutting down a tree, but you'd be creating a curb cut.
That's correct.
And taking parking away from the neighbors.
That's correct.
Okay. And then,
And just to be clear, we would like not
Right.
to do that. So we're asking for support not to put in a curb.
to find a way to zone it as a triplex or multi-unit without having to add the parking.
Correct.
And then, I don't know if you said this, you said you can't quite track when it had, do you have any idea how long it's been?
Well,
Units?
the,
PGW, I called them and they said they had a record from '97 of when there became a second unit for gas. So-
Been that longer than that. I've been in my house 93, and it has always been a multifamily home, and it's never been a problem.
So you're saying that your house is separate meter for gas?
Yeah, yeah.
Okay, well, there should be a record with PGW when
Right,
they came in and put in separate meters.
yeah.
Also, phone records, phone books are part of the library system. That's always a good way to trace back.
Phone books. I have to say,
Contact list.
I'm going to take that one on the chin. I have not thought of the way but we could look into
Maybe you should talk to the guy who's doing the literacy thing.
We could look I'm sorry, that hand up back in.
Yeah, I grew up at 3520 Ainslie Street.
3520?
20, yes.
So it's across the street.
And when the Bergens owned that house, I know that there were 3 units in there, so we're talking late 50s, early 60s.
Okay.
Can we
So,
follow?
and I also know that Philly Hannigan lived in that place on the second and third floor. Mr. and Mrs. Bergen lived on the first floor. I think maybe their son rented from them and lived on the second floor, young Bill, and then there was an apartment on the third floor. Now, the only other option you might have is, and I know it's not public knowledge right now, is the census. The census would have shown that there were 3 families in that house.
That's interesting.
So, I live next door. I live at 3525/27 Ainslie. Before I go against offering the variance, I want to say that Peggy and I have been great neighbors when they lived there. We have lived there beforehand when there were other people that owned that property. And as long as the landlord was on the property was well maintained, responsibility to the neighbors were respected. I can't say that we get that same type of respect now that she's an absentee owner. And that's where my biggest concern is. Especially on our block, we have a lot of families that live on the block. And if you're going to have multifamily use, I get it if you live there. But when it starts that, I don't want to set a precedence where one home today, and then 10 years from now, somebody said, well, I don't remember there being a problem when they asked for this variance, and then it just snowballs. And then we have a lot of apartments on our block that devalues our property, and we're in a situation where we're trying to flee our home instead of feeling like it's where we wanted to stay. So I wanted to make that statement. In regards to, and we've had this conversation, love the oak tree until it sheds leaves, but for some reason the wind blows in my direction. But we have a great neighborhood, and I think it's important for us to try to maintain.
If I could just say one thing, because I respect that, and I travel all around the city doing this sort of thing, and we had a pretty good inclination that that's been 3 units for a long time.
And there was always an owner that lived there.
I understand that. So one of the things I hear is maybe it goes back to the 1950s. I always ask people to consider each application on its own, right? To give everybody a fair shake, one way or the other. So a property that's been this way since the 1950s is one thing. Somebody who wants to convert an existing property, or who maybe converted it 5 years ago or 2 years ago, and then they come in here and say, I want to legalize it, that's perhaps a different thing. The way we know it's different is because all of you. It seems to me, this is the type of community where if I go out tomorrow and buy a house, and I convert it into 3 units from a single, and then I come back in here in a year or two and say, hey, I want to legalize this property into 3, I think you're going to be throwing things at me, right? All these folks in here are going to say, no, that was a single, just up until very recently. I know that it was. I know the people who lived there, and so on and so forth. So I would just simply ask you to take a look at each separate application in its own context. But I appreciate that sentiment, for sure.
Bill, hence the hardship of having to provide 3 parking spaces, 1 per unit. That's the way that it seems that the law is structured, so that people don't do this. Okay, like, if I was to develop nowadays an apartment building, just like they were just talking about with Dobson, I could get away with the rules of a basically like a 3-for-1. It makes it tough to do a conversion with the hardship that you have to provide 1-for-1 parking.
I think it's very tough to do a conversion.
So basically, you have a hardship issue with parking here, and you're looking for a legalization of 3 apartments, basically.
Essentially. I mean, the refusals, just to be clear, two grounds, right? One is a triplex, period, in a single-family district. Second, and related to that, is the relatively recent requirement of 1 spot per unit, which to me reads like it's written for new construction, right? If you want to build, let's say, a 10-unit complex, the city's going to want to know where people are parked, right?
Okay, the city doesn't want to necessarily convert, have every house converted to multi-family.
Correct. It certainly doesn't. Yes?
I have a question. I am pleased to hear people are concerned about the tree, of course, but what is the width of the lot? In other words, currently, can the space in front of the property accommodate 3 normal-sized vehicles?
You know, I went there.
So what is the width of the
I went
lot?
down there to take a look the other day, and when I was down there, I said, I wish I brought a tape measure, and I did not. So I don't want to make a false representation to you. Could you go nose in with 3 cars? I don't think so. We could measure it and get that answer. It would certainly be right up on your property. I mean, it would have to be right there. I don't think so, but I can't say for sure. But I do know that when you would have to take out the retaining wall, go into the backhoe and take that out. And there's no way to keep the tree when you go in to put the pad in. It's just the way it's the way that parcel is right now. I see some hands in the back, some folks we have back. Yes?
So when the property was purchased and mortgaged, I assume, was it described as a 3-family or as a single-family dwelling at the time of purchase when you made the decision to become owners and mortgage the property?
It was described as a triplex, and the plan, if I can summarize, was for Peg to live individually on the first floor, Anita to live individually on the second floor, and then to rent out the 3rd floor and use the proceeds to contribute to the mortgage. So that was the existing use of the property at the time, and it was marketed as such. They bought it for that reason.
Who's the owner?
Eric Meisler, M-E-I-S-L-E-R.
We're the owner.
Right now.
They're the owners right now.
You're the
Tenants come. They're both the owners.
But they don't live at the property.
We left the property about 5 years ago, 4 or 5 years ago.
Okay.
Two owners.
I live on Osmond Street at 19129 in East Falls.
So, other questions? I thought there were some more hands. Yes?
So you're saying the requirement for the triplex is there 1 spot for each unit?
That's what the zoning code says, yes. So if I were to build it new, the city would, that's where we're going to start. And then if I wanted to put in fewer, I would have to tell the city why. But here we have an existing structure which was not built with a driveway, it was not built with parking. Somewhere around the 1950s, early 60s, it's converted into 3. No parking spots are put in. And that's where we are. Yes, ma'am.
So, yeah, I don't want to let you minimize our concern here around not having an owner live in the property. It has been a real concern for us since we basically a fence divides our shared sidelines. and it's been a quality of life issue. And so I just want to say again that I'm not in favor of changing this to a multifamily dwelling. In terms of parking, directly across the street, there's an identical home twin that does have 3 parking spaces. It was used the driveway had been used for 2 cars. It is now 3 spaces, line spaces, okay? I love the oak tree, but I'm not totally tied to it because it creates a lot of work for us, okay? And, you know, as the PHS always says, you can always replace the tree. And so, well, true, but, you know, there's other concerns with the tree as well. And so I just don't want to minimize our concern. I'm also fearful that we're tipping the balance of rental versus home ownership on this particular block. And because there is a side lot that, you know, it could end up being a home that gets demolished, and there's 6 families living in 6 apartments because of the land.
Well, that's something that I want to just address that real fast. But this application proposes no changes and no new construction.
But that's just for the current home.
Well, hang on a second. If you wanted to, let's say, build a little 4th unit on the side, right? Completely separate process. And we'd have to come back in here, make a completely different application. That gets into the building code. Same with subdividing a property or something along those lines. That is a different process entirely. That would require a fresh variance process. We would have to come in here with plans to show what it's going to look like. That's not the plan. That's not what we're going to do. I can tell you, I won't be back here. These folks won't be back here to put any addition on, any new housing on, any demolition. That's not what we're doing. If we do that, please call me on. You could, the last thing I'll say about this, I just want to be crystal clear that we're not changing the configuration of the property. One thing that has been done in the past is the ZBA can sometimes put in what they call a proviso, and they'll write into the variance only for existing use of 3 units. That way the whole world is on notice. If the property is ever sold, the purchaser is on notice when they check the zoning history. It's only approved for 3. So if somebody wants to go in there and put in 4, it explicitly says 3 only, right? So a proviso is a way to protect against that. You see somebody moving it around into 4, you call L&I. They go in, they see number 4, it's no good. So that's one thing that can be done. Go ahead, okay, the flag.
Are there any other near neighbors besides Donna and this gentleman? And did you have other things you wanted to say in addition to the comment? I just want to mind the clock a little. There's a lot of people are here for this other matter.
Yeah, I would only say that I see Kevin and Donna's point, and the lawn side could be cut, maintained better.
I live nearby, I ditto the same. I think although renters can take care of property, homeowners tend to do, it was better maintained when you were living there. So it's a maintenance issue.
After you
Maintenance
run through.
around there.
The issues that you're talking about though, it's this type of thing, it's not like a needed eviction or things like that.
No, you know, in Peg and Anita's defense, I think they've had some very good tenants there. The issue has been they're taking care of their property. It is not shoveled when it snows. The front is not maintained. I actually, after 5 years of asking very nicely to maintain the property, had to call 311.
I'm Peg's partner, and as Peg said, we live in the neighborhood on Osmond Street, and when there is snow, I go over and shovel. I have historically gone over and shoveled.
Mike is not consistently enough. I actually injured my hip in the house as I
I got one point to make. I got a very similar property
profound additional points.
No, but I got the same exact issue. I dealt with this 12 years ago with my property at the corner of Crescent and Sunnyside. I bought it neighbors on Ainslie. And there's one huge thing that was voiced at the zoning meetings that came from my neighbors on Ainslie, which was the yard maintenance was critical, but that the tenants don't have, like one tenant doesn't have complete usage of the yard. So it doesn't become a party zone, it doesn't become disruptive to the neighbors trying to use their yard. So what did I do? Kevin, Donna, you guys know. Share the proceeds of the vegetables from my garden back there and stuff. And I'm not going to say I'm an absentee landlord. I still live 2 blocks away, just probably about as far as you live from it. But it does take work, and it does take, hey, my yard gets a little out of hand once in a while, definitely. So all of our yards do.
My question is, I'm just looking at these photos. Are there 3 separate electrical services to this property, or is there just 2?
Two.
So then it wasn't really 3 separate units altogether. You really had 2. I mean, there's also 2 water heaters and 2 heaters, correct?
With 3 kitchens and 3 bathrooms.
Yeah, but that's still not 3 separate properties. You can't split them apart if you're using,
That's just the way it is when we bought it.
It's not required to have a separate meter for each apartment. You have one meter that can do the whole building.
Yeah.
And the landlord pays all the utilities.
It's entirely possible, and that's how it was done in the 50s or 60s. It was just one set of mechanicals for the whole thing, and the landlord paid, especially if they had family members renting. But that's speculation. That's only speculation.
When's your ZBA date?
I believe it's November. I know, too. I haven't gotten my posters yet.
I like to let everyone know the date, so.
You just have to give me just a moment. I think it was the 13th. But I didn't actually receive. November 13th, the ZBA. I haven't received that notice. We don't have the orange posters yet, but I found that on the ZBA's calendar, which you can find online. They were on for the morning, November 13th at 9:45 is the morning session. I think we have another comment.
I don't know whether it'll work or not, but it seems to me that given your November hearing date, you have time to address the neighbors, to make legitimate concerns by way of a reportable document that runs with the land. In other words, if they sell the property to someone else, it's still binding, that will protect the neighbors for the future. Now, whether you can all work that out or not, I don't know. But it may be a way to resolve this so that when you get to November, you will have a fight with the zoning board. And I don't know whether the neighbors want to try that or not, but it's a suggestion.
And we can sidebar about that.
Okay, we can sidebar about it. Yeah, they're legal